Hey everybody, now this might be an overreaction because VRChat seems to never be of a shortage of community freelancers making maps and avatars for passion, but a while ago VRChat fired one of their developers, which normally is business as usual for any major software company, but the reason why this became big news was the public fallout on X, to which the post was taken down and there was no official response from VRChat. But almost like a ripple effect, we're starting to see a few longtime creators quitting development on the VRChat platform altogether, ranging from complaints about the creator economy, lack of support, and just problems developing on VRChat in general. I'm gonna go over some of these posts, share clips from our public discussion, and also some of the more secret behind the scenes changes that most VRChat players haven't even realized. But first, we need to get some context on the impact Merlin VR had on the developer community before we get into any of the details on their falling out with VRChat. Now, I'm not a technical person, but this is best explained by my friend Twisty10000, who's made a lot of great maps in VRChat before. Was Udon originally put together by a passionate developer for better scripting in VRChat, and then they just got hired by VRChat to make it a real thing?
No, so when it's crazy. Like, the timeline for me personally, it still blows my mind to this day, but essentially I'm sitting here thinking, man, I wish I could develop like in code what I do for my game dev classes, because I could be such a better developer. Udon itself was just started out as a visual language, which is just connecting the noodles, and that's why it's called Udon. You connect nodes together, Udon nodes, and make logic happen that way. And I have done that. I did that in game dev college, and it's cool, but it gets really tedious after your first couple of projects. You're just like, yeah, you're done. What Merlin made was Udon Sharp. He did not make Udon, he made Udon Sharp, and he did it, or they did it on their own terms. This thing that compiles to Udon Graph and communicates with Udon Graph through code. So technically in the very beginning, you were writing Udon Graph as code that was then getting compiled back into Graph, but you never had to touch a single ounce of Graph. It was beautiful, a wonderful tool. I would say probably 75% of us who make like the game worlds and stuff would not be here at all if it was not for Udon Sharp and the work that Merlin did, because it's just, yeah, it's good stuff.
So on April 4th, Merlin VR posted, "I am no longer working at VRChat," followed by a thread of their personal issues working at the company, and to basically sum it up, they were upset at a developer communication that they had warned internally not to post. VRChat posted it anyways. They wrote in their words, a somewhat rude letter to their manager to hopefully get feedback from the team. The manager said, "Yeah, we're not going to do that, but let's figure something out." Merlin apologizes, requests 1 to 2 months off because they were burnt out from working so much. New director of HR says, "Yeah, no, you're only going to get 2 weeks unless you have a doctor's note." Merlin brings up that VRChat has unlimited PTO and they just wanted some time to cool off. HR director says, "We'll think about it." Merlin writes another frustrated email asking to be heard, or that they should hire a director of VR communications. Another meeting was called, and then they were fired.
I think from what I'm reading, I don't think Merlin's exactly trying to call out VRChat in a sense. They're just wanting to be heard. As they said, they were ignored for some of the issues that they wanted to talk about, and they just, no one listened. So to me, this just seems as opposed to want to be listened and want to be heard and see if someone agrees with them, kind of like justifying their own thoughts.
As of a few hours ago, VRChat announced a roadmap of planned VRChat SDK features, some of which include Unity. Now keep in mind, a lot of this public conversation was held over a month ago, so this is a new welcome change. I also don't know if you're noticing a trend here, but this all stems from communication issues between the official developers and the community itself. I think for the past 5 years or so, VRChat has had this reputation of freedom of community, expression, and good memes. But for the past 6 months, we've seen more publicity and truth-seeking in not just VRChat, but across the internet in general. Maybe now some of you might be asking, well damn, when did VRChat become so corporate? What the hell happened to the Wild West of VR and the days of Uganda Knuckles and role-playing with friends? Well, earlier in this video, I said I'd show some of the secret behind-the-scenes changes in VRChat, but really, they're not secret at all. I found a lot of this information publicly on LinkedIn. In January, Rob Miller, co-founder of VRChat, announced his departure for a well-deserved break after 7.5 years of service, and since then, VRChat has been aggressively hiring senior-level executives to join the community. presumably to keep up with the demand and to help scale out teams to provide better quality services, and also maybe help figure out a way to pay back some of the $90 million of venture capital funding that they got. And if you look at the roster, the guys who are joining, they aren't small players. These are guys who worked at Netflix, Roblox, Spotify, and Meta. The only interesting thing I'll point out is that the new Chief Product Officer and Executive Vice President of VRChat was formerly the head of product of Facebook Application Privacy and Consumer Trust. Huh.
So back in the early days of VRChat, I don't know how long y'all have been playing it, but there was a lot of feedback. And especially with Merlin in particular, once they made Udon Sharp, we could communicate with Merlin. And I guess even then Merlin had like good communication with the dev team, because a lot of things that like we pushed to Merlin was able to get pushed to the game before they actually started working there. Once VRChat started getting a whole bunch more VC money and they started pushing for more like the microtransaction stuff like VRC Plus, after which was supposed to kind of help ease some of the client usage because a lot of people wanted like extra friends or stuff like that. They started pushing more and more things to make them more money, which I don't blame them. But at the same time, like all the world creators, when we were trying to like do really cool things with the original version of the SDK to where we are now, we would want something as simple as just an array, which we couldn't even get. Yes. Or a collection.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
A list.
We wanted that for so long. We begged for it. We begged for things like being able to send parameters and network calls.
Sorry if I'm ignorant on this, because I'm not very technical, but just really briefly, are implementing those things in sort of a game environment, does it take a lot of work and a lot of commits to get stuff like that up and running? Or from your guys' perspective and experience in game dev, this should not be a problem?
So personally, I don't think it should be a problem, but because they use Photon, they have to make their own workarounds for everything.
Once you learn it one time, it should be as simple as remembering how to make that one thing sunk again. But you will find from project to project, you will do the exact thing that you did just the project before, and suddenly it no longer works, or no longer works consistently, or some kind of issue. And it is single-handedly probably one of the greatest reasons I got burnt out, was because I just kept running into the weirdest freaking problems. And it was so frustrating.
Now, during this live space, Merlin's original tweet was deleted, and in their words, were asked nicely to take it down. Now, this brings us to the present. In the past week or so, we've seen two relatively high-profile VRChat world creators publicly announce their project cancellations. On April 20th, Centauri, who's made Nora Nocturne, Ether's Maw, and the Blackjack table prefab, announced that they were canceling VRChat Game World projects due to VRChat bugs and aggressive network limitations, and instead were going to focus on making their own standalone VR game. And just 24 hours ago, Dinky, who's made games like Gun 'Em Down, Remnant VR, and Run for Your Life, announced that they were just straight up quitting VRChat world development. In their words, they said it was an ever-growing list of reasons, including watching their past worlds break, disappointments with the creator economy, and of course, lack of communication with the developers of VRChat. Now, I still really like VRChat, and I'll continue to make videos about it, but this brings us to a new narrative. What used to be a silly VR game has now grown into a real platform, and if the developers of VRChat can't voice their concerns internally, even if a bit crude, what hope is there for the passionate freelancers who make content on this platform for others to enjoy, and in turn, between the actual players and the company itself? Or maybe this could be a classic case of VR developers outgrowing their environment. But that being said, all resources used are in the description, and if you like videos like these, let me know by liking and commenting what you think about this so far. And until then, see you next time. Or I'll touch some grass. I don't know, bro. I play too much VRChat or something, bro.